very pleased to announce that Ms. Chloe Thompson is going to be joining us today to tell us about captivity and dolphins.
Hi, my name is Chloe Thompson and welcome to my Masterworks. For the past year, I've been studying the effects of captivity on dolphins. How many of you have swam with a dolphin in captivity? All right, a few of you. How many of you have swam with a dolphin in the wild? Oh, wow. More than I expected. I've done both, and I must say, there's quite the difference. I will be explaining these differences to you. Since I started my journey through Island Pacific School, my love for dolphins has only grown. From a young age, I've consistently tried to convince my parents that I would grow up to be a dolphin trainer. I begged them to turn on ocean documentaries, still do. And when I had my interview way back in grade 5 with Ted Spear, I told him I would be doing something on dolphins for my Masterworks. And well, Ted, here I am. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of captivity. Cetaceans, also known as whales, dolphins, and porpoises, have been in captivity since 1862. It was reported that P.T. Barnum, whom can be recognized for founding Barnum and Bailey Circus, had arranged to have 6 beluga whales caught in the St. Lawrence River that year and shipped to his museum in New York. It was later reported that 5 of the animals had passed away and the remaining one lived on for only 2 years in captivity. By the late 1870s, dolphins and other whales were being captured and shipped all over the world, mainly to dolphinariums. This new business idea thrived. People paid to come see these creatures that they probably hadn't seen before, as it wasn't common to see beluga whales if you lived in the city back then. You can probably understand their excitement of seeing these animals. The first ocean area, Marine Studios, which became Marineland of Florida in 1970, opened in 1938, and they specialized in cetaceans. They were also the first aquarium to have a successful live birth of a bottlenose dolphin in captivity. Marineland had originally been established as a set for aquatic films, but began to promote shows with trained cetaceans for the entertainment of the public. They still do these shows with their marine mammals, but currently Marineland has been charged with 6 new counts of animal cruelty. Marineland, which features both marine and land animals, now faces a total of 11 charges of animal cruelty after a complaint raised concerns about some of the animals' well-being in November. The maximum penalties for these charges are a $60,000 fine, a lifetime ban from owning animals, and up to 2 years in jail. In the 1960s, the public began to speak out against captivity. This has been an ongoing battle and will probably continue for many years to come. Many organizations have started since then, like the Dolphin Project, in order to take acts toward protection and to encourage participation in protests against captivity. In 1972, the Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed. The law prohibits the taking of any marine mammal from U.S. waters or by U.S. citizen in international waters, except by special permit. Permits for capture or importation may be granted by the National Marine Fisheries Service, or NMFS, for the purposes of scientific work, public display, strandings, or accidental captures by fishermen. It also says that the captures must be humane. In order to be allowed to capture a wild animal, you must send in an application that will be decided upon by the NMFS and return to you with their answer in about 5 to 6 months. So on a side note, being able to capture an animal from the wild is kind of like applying for college, but what do I know about that? To summarize, the act makes it illegal to take marine mammals without a permit. This means people may not harass, feed, hunt, capture, collect, or kill any marine mammal. Even with the act from 1972, companies were still capturing whales illegally. For example, the Budd Inlet killer whale capture of 1976. It was witnessed by Ralph Monroe, an assistant to Washington State Governor Dan Evans. Monroe happened to be sailing in Puget Sound at the time. He reports that SeaWorld's captors were using aircraft and explosives to herd and net a pod of killer whales, and in so doing were clearly violating the terms of their collection permit. When Washington State Governor Dan Evans learned of this, he sued SeaWorld. All of the whales were eventually released, and a Seattle district court ordered SeaWorld to surrender its permit, granting their right to collect killer whales off of the coast of Washington. Washington state waters became an unofficial sanctuary for killer whales, and so far, no organization has ever again applied to capture killer whales from here. In 1976, following in the footsteps of the Marine Mammal Protection Act, Washington state waters were closed to killer whale captures. After this Puget Sound incident, SeaWorld sought to replenish their supply of whales. To do so, they traveled to Iceland and captured a few orcas, including the rather famous Tilikum. Tilikum starred in Blackfish, the movie that changed the way people think about captive whales. Blackfish is a documentary that opened people's eyes and showed the world the harsh reality of captivity. Sadly, Tilikum passed away recently, suffering from a lung infection. Captivity is a problem, but how is it that these animals end up here in the first place? Most dolphins were captured in the yearly dive hunt off of the coast of Taiji, Japan. The Dolphin Project is there every step of the way to document every hunt, every whale, or every dolphin killed. They are raising awareness and risking their own safety for it, as some of the volunteers have been taken to jail for being there and trying to save the whales before they are slaughtered. It is actually illegal to touch the animals driven into the cove. Here's a video from the Dolphin Project that they made to raise awareness for the dive hunts.
My friend is so much fun. He's always playing tricks on people.
He is so smart.
In fact, he's one of the most intelligent beings on the planet.
This friend can literally see through me. And I'm not kidding.
My friend races sailboats and always wins.
My friend has no problem hitting a high.
My friend can surf waves 25 feet high with no board. I'd like to see you try that.
This friend can understand us, but we can't understand him.
He saves lives.
He saves lives.
He saved human lives.
He's always smiling, but that doesn't mean that he's always happy.
My friend doesn't belong in captivity.
My friend does not belong in captivity.
He doesn't belong in captivity.
His home is in the ocean.
But my friend is in serious trouble.
In fact, he's fighting for his life right now.
Right now.
Right now. Off the coast of Japan, dolphins and porpoises are driven to a horrible fate.
The most attractive are chosen for life in captivity. The others are brutally killed.
Their meat, which contains toxic levels of mercury, is sold as food.
Majority of people in Japan don't even know this is happening. Please help us end this senseless slaughter.
Please help us get the word out.
Please join us in getting the word out.
Help us get the word out.
To find out more,
Go to takepart.com/the cove.
We are their biggest threat and their only hope.
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 From the first day of September to the last day of February, dolphins and small whales are driven into the cove, and they are either killed for their meat or chosen for a life in captivity. The pretty ones and the young ones are normally chosen for captivity and are sold for over $250,000 US. The young ones are taken from their families because it's easier for the trainers to train a young dolphin. The others, who are not pretty enough, are brutally slaughtered in the cove and sold to the people of Japan. Little did the Japanese residents know that their meat is considered toxic due to its high content of mercury. Now, how many of you have been to an aquarium? All right, so a few of you have, okay. This is a form of captivity. Now, people's opinions about captivity is varied. Some say it's cruel and abusive, while others believe it's humane and important. But it all depends on the type of captivity the animals are being subjected to. There are many different types of captivity, rather than just the more popular one, entertainment. Military captivity, special needs captivity, and research captivity are also forms of marine mammal confinement. Military captivity is an operation lesser known to the public, as it would surely draw far too much attention. The dolphins are kept in small wading pools mostly until they are needed. Then they take the dolphins out into the open ocean, where they are trained to protect military ships and help locate underwater mines. Not only does the American Navy use dolphins of more than one species, but they also have been known to use sea lions. Special needs captivity is an interesting form of medicine. Some doctors believe that interactions between dolphins and people with special needs, such as Down syndrome or autism, have been known to improve a person's mental health. Many organizations have scheduled weekly interactions. The dolphins are sometimes trained to play games with the children and help them learn more about the dolphins and what it is to express some virtues such as respect. Respect is a common virtue taught by the dolphins, as the children need to learn to respect the animal that is helping them. And sometimes the dolphins playing with the children don't even need to be trained. the dolphins that can go without training would be the ones with calves, as the mothers know how to act with their young, and being with a human child may not be much of a difference to them. Research captivity is a form of captivity where an aquarium, for example the Vancouver Aquarium, keeps marine mammals in tanks for research purposes. They are able to learn their habits and document their activities for further analysis. The great thing about the Vancouver Aquarium is that they are able to teach us things about the whales that we would probably never have learned about if they were wild. The Vancouver Aquarium also rescues their animals and rehabilitates them and releases them back into the wild, all the while generating data from the animals for research. Entertainment captivity. This is the most popular kind. People buy tickets to watch the animals perform or to even swim with them. The animals do the same tricks at the same time every day. They are sometimes kept in brutal conditions with no escape and forced to perform. They would never do any of these tricks in the wild, such as pushing children or adults around their pool. Is this good for their noses or their fins? Jumping through flaming hoops, why is that even necessary? And towing swimmers around on their dorsal fins. That can't be good for their fins. Captivity takes no days off. The effects of captivity. First of all, the definition of captivity is the condition of being imprisoned or confined. Captivity has many different effects on many different species. One of these effects is dorsal fin collapse. This occurs in 30 to 100% of captive male orcas, but in only 1% of wild ones. Dorsal fin collapse is when the dorsal fin of an orca falls to one side, and this is largely due to the small spaces in which the animals are contained in. Some possible causes for dorsal fin collapse may be dehydration, overheating of fin tissue due to warmer water and air temperatures, stress, changes in diet, reduced activity, and age. Usually this happens to the male orcas because the females have smaller dorsal fins. Due to the advanced social structure of whales and dolphins in the wild, cetaceans are very unsuited for confinement. In the wild, whales and dolphins live in large groups called pods and often in tight-knit familial units. Familial bonds often last for decades, and depending on the species, they can last a lifetime. Unfortunately, it's entirely impossible to maintain a familial unit in captivity. The animals are often moved around to various locations without a thought to their well-being or their extremely important familial bonds. It's all completely artificial. In addition to the stress of moving from one place to another, in many aquatic shows, dolphins are forced to beach themselves as a trick. This is in stark contrast to dolphins in the wild that would never beach themselves intentionally. Scientists believe that this is extremely harmful because dolphins jumping and resting their bellies over hard surfaces may eventually damage their internal organs. Dolphins need to eat, right? Thankfully, their diets are mostly the same in captivity as they would be in the wild, except for two things. One, the fish are dead, and two, the fish don't provide enough fresh water for the dolphins. So, normally, they are given tubes and water that go directly to their stomachs in this picture over here. And normally, dolphins don't eat dead fish, but because there's nothing the trainers can do to fix that, they must accept them. Before the dolphins are fed the fish, and because dolphins are very prone to stress in captivity, the fish are almost always injected with medications. These medications are not given to all types of cetaceans. Some of these are given to killer whales because of their size and occasionally aggressive behavior, and some to smaller whales to ensure their health and well-being. Some of these medications include antibiotics because whales in captivity are susceptible to tooth infections because they damage their teeth on concrete surfaces, and infection from injuries caused by other whales cramped into tanks with them. It is also reported that whales in captivity are almost always on antibiotics. Another medication cetaceans have reportedly been fed is antipsychotics. Trainers give these to whales with high testosterone levels to lower them. It has also been said that SeaWorld gave benzodiazepine, a calming drug, to a nursing mother orca in violation of the medical guidelines. This is because whales have a tendency to sometimes kill or injure their newborns. It isn't known exactly why they do this, but some people think it's because they don't want their young to grow up in an environment because if they were once wild, they know what it was like. Sometimes the trainers are forced to separate the mother and baby to prevent this from happening, but then the baby either grows up motherless or they get to meet the mother when they are older. On a happier note, let's talk about the dolphin and human connection. Dolphins and humans have had positive interactions since we can remember. They have saved the lives of lost sailors at sea, saved dogs from drowning, and sometimes they've even been known and seen rounding up schools of fish to indicate to fishermen where they place their nets. Dolphins are very intelligent, and helping humans catch fish shows that they understand the concept of sharing and the need for food for survival. An example of a strong dolphin-human connection would be the story of Dean and Jojo. Dean saved Jojo the dolphin's life after he was hit by a boat propeller. He was very close to bleeding out, and Dean rushed to his side and bandaged him up the best he could. His efforts saved Jojo's life, and Jojo has never forgotten about it. Because Dean now spends a lot of time with Jojo, he's been deemed the national guardian of Jojo, and Jojo the national treasure of the Turks and Caicos Islands. Another example of a human-dolphin connection is from National Geographic. A group of researchers were documenting a pod of dolphins feeding when suddenly they sped off to somewhere 3 miles offshore. The team followed them only to find them circling a dark shape, which turned out to be a young girl attempting suicide. The team pulled her onto the boat and managed to save her life, thanks to the dolphins leading them to her. There are plenty of stories about how dolphins and even orcas have saved humans and animals from sharks or other dangers. This just shows how special and intuitive they are. Many people have gone swimming with dolphins, whether in the wild or captivity, mostly in captivity because it's easier for tourists and a bigger moneymaker for dolphinariums. Most claim to feel a connection with the dolphins, and it's hard not to. The way they interact with us, structured or not, makes us feel connected to them. But the question is, are the dolphins feeling the same? In this shot, when the dolphins came around to tow little 6-year-old me, I couldn't grasp their fins. When the trainers called the dolphins back, they ignored the instructions and came around again more slowly this time to let me have another go at it. I feel like that was definitely a connection. And if you see, I still wasn't holding their fins properly. Dolphins and whales have been in captivity for a long time now. There are some people that think their times in tanks is up and strive to return them to the ocean where they belong. But captivity can sometimes even save an animal's life. I'm going to tell you the story of Chester, a false killer whale at the Vancouver Aquarium. Chester was stranded at only a week or 2 old. He hadn't even grown teeth yet. He was found on a beach in Tofino in rough shape. He was wounded and emaciated. The Vancouver Aquarium said that he was at a point in his life when he should have been completely reliant on his mother for survival. Yet, no one could locate his mother, let alone his pod in the area. He was taken into the Vancouver Aquarium's care and deemed unreleasable by Fisheries and Oceans Canada due to his young age, lack of hunting and social skills, and extensive contact with humans. He also had no way of learning crucial survival skills from his pod. He's now an ambassador of rescued and rehabilitated animals at the Vancouver Aquarium Marine Science Center. He's also been helping researchers understand how whales, dolphins, and porpoises hear and echolocate, which is navigating underwater using sound. Unfortunately, there have been many more failures than successes in the names of captivity, whether it be unsuccessful releases or deaths within the tanks. When releasing a cetacean, they must go to a pen in the ocean, but the stress and new surroundings are enough to throw a dolphin off its game after living in the same area for years. It becomes increasingly harder for scientists and researchers to release the animals with every year they spend learning and adapting to their new life in captivity, especially if they are captive since a young age. The Vancouver Aquarium has had quite a few deaths in the terms of whales, but the great thing about them is that they rescue these animals. They give them a second chance at life even if they are deemed unreleasable. And even though they're forced to stay at the aquarium due to complications, they still get to live, just not in the same environment that they are used to. Unfortunately, the Vancouver Aquarium has had a few complications. Recently, in November of 2016, Aurora, who is the last remaining beluga at the Vancouver Aquarium, passed away. She was also the last remaining beluga who was once wild at the aquarium. She was taken from her pod in Hudson's Bay and taken into captivity in 1990. She was 30 years old and died after her young daughter Keela passed to the same cause. This cause is unfortunately unknown, but many suspect it was poison put into the tanks by a protester, and it wouldn't be the first time a whale has died on the aquarium's watch. A young 1-year-old beluga named Nala, who was born to Aurora, died in 2011 after a coin was tossed into her enclosure. The coin was ingested and it created a blockage in her airway. This is one of the many examples of the saying, captivity kills. On the topic of the Vancouver Aquarium, their belugas have long been a topic of conversation. The fact that they are in captivity worries many people, while others are in favor of having whales at the aquarium. The passing of Aurora and Keela, mother and daughter, kickstarted the debate and have resulted in a ban of whales at the aquarium. Because the aquarium leases the land from the Vancouver Park Board, they have a say in what the aquarium does. Multiple debates and few protests have taken place against the aquarium, and the park board has finally succeeded in the eventual ban of all cetaceans at the aquarium. But the Vancouver Aquarium is helping animals in need. Because the Vancouver Park Board has shut it all down, animals will lose their lives in the wild instead of being given a second chance. The animals found stranded on beaches will now have to be euthanized instead of rehabilitated. Is this fair to veterinarians that have to put them down when they could save their lives? Where else are we going to put those that need their lives saved and cannot go back to the wild? Is it right to let them die because we've decided that all forms of captivity are bad? The Vancouver Aquarium has saved so many lives that would have otherwise been lost. Take Chester, for example. He was found all alone without his mother or pod nearby. At a young age, he had no idea how to survive on his own, and he would have died and starved to death. But now he's very healthy living at the aquarium because they saved his life. Or take his tank mate, a dolphin named Helen, for example. She was found entangled in a fishing net. Not only did she survive, but she's helping researchers gather information on how dolphins navigate underwater using echolocation and why they get stuck in nets. This information could help save the critically endangered vaquita dolphin in Mexico. Dolphins around the world have had a tough go in terms of captivity, but being taken from their families and placed in confinement isn't on their to-do list. Having seen arguments from both sides, captivity isn't all that bad, but it isn't that great either. Captivity can be good in terms of helping us learn and helping us make better decisions in the future. But captivity should not be utilized for profit. It should not use the animals in a way that could potentially harm them or in a way that is meant to entertain other people. The animals should not be forced to do tricks. They should be treated with respect. They should not be treated this way because we can learn so much from them that could help them and us in the future. If we're saving lives that could have been lost, as in Chester, this is a prime example of beneficial captivity. This is an example of being humankind, treating others with the respect that they deserve. Captivity is something that doesn't define us, but is simply showing what we are capable of. We can save lives, or we can make lives miserable. As Rick O'Barry once said, habitat dictates behavior, and not only the animal in captivity, but our own as well. Now, before I take questions, I would like to thank my advisors, Pam Matthews and Kathy Heath, for helping me organize my random information into a presentation, and helping me with my interviews, helping me find information, and also for your feedback. I'd also like to thank Dean Brunel for always being available for information and stories, even though he lives in another country. Thank you to my parents for proofreading everything and always being open to talk about my topic. Thank you to my class for tolerating my love of dolphins. And thank you to Dr. Hugh Black for helping me edit my paper and narrow down my topic. Thank you for listening.
I am very, very pleased to announce that Ms. Chloe Thompson has met all the requirements of the IPS Masterworks program.